All right, and we're live. Welcome to Gamereactor Live on a Friday. It's Friday, so that must mean it's the news roundup of the week. We've got a bit of a two-for-one offer for you this week. With the first hour, we're going to be discussing the usual news roundup of the past 7 days with myself, Gillen McAllister, UK editor. And along for the ride for this first hour is Mike Holmes, my associate editor here in the UK. After the second hour, we'll be handing over to Bengt and Dory, who are live in America and hopefully still awake, where we'll be doing a roundup of the GDC news and events that have been going on for the past few days for them. But let's get cracking. It has been obviously a very, very busy week, a big week for gaming news and for the industry due to GDC going on at the moment. And certainly the top headline for us here, certainly the thing that's garnered the most column inches, is the VR announcements, particularly with Valve. We know about Sony's Morpheus, we already know about Oculus Rift, but Valve's plans, we were questioning exactly what they were up to and whether they would give us an answer this week, and they certainly have. They're teaming up with HTC to create the ultimate headset that apparently has zero motion sickness, or so they say, and it's due to actually launch later this year. Consumer product, that is. It's not even just going into the hands of developers who will be getting it sometime in the spring or summer, but it will be in our hands, your hands, at the end of the year. Now, we've had a little look at this over at GDC. We've sort of discussed it on the interwebs, and it's interesting tech, and it certainly does seem to be the trendsetter for the three VR devices that are currently being designed by the three different companies. Now, Mike, I'd just like to get your sort of thoughts, initial thoughts on what Valve's announced here this week. Do you think surprised? Do you think it's the glorious revolution that we expected, or has it left you a bit cold?
Well, we weren't super sure that we were going to get VR from Valve at all. I mean, they did have some people working on it a couple of years ago, but it was known for a while that they'd let quite a few people go, and a lot of people went over to Oculus. So actually, I was quite surprised, and perhaps they looked at augmented reality and wearable tech, and actually they decided to go back to VR because that was where everyone was going, thanks to Oculus and to Morpheus. So maybe they've been driven back to the tech by kind of the popularity and the buzz surrounding other projects. But if it works, I've yet to try it. My VR experience so far was with an Oculus, and I enjoyed it, but I did feel a little bit weird afterwards. So if they've managed to sort out the motion sickness, then I'll definitely be picking one up. And it's nice that we're getting options now. I mean, with Valve throwing their weight behind this, then there's every chance that it will succeed. And with whether or not I get the Morpheus on the PlayStation is irrelevant. I mean, for the PC stuff, PC is where there's massive potential, especially because with a really strong simulation scene, and it's a lot easier to kind of develop and release experimental projects for, and I think the PC will be where the bulk of the VR stuff is released. So having a choice between Oculus and Vive, I think it's called, will be good. So it's just going to be a case now of finding out what's good and what works best, and then happening up the pennies.
I think that certainly the concern that I have is not just the cost, because we know these are going to be expensive pieces of kit, but hopefully not too much that it'll completely cut out any consumer wanting to sort of dip into this, and otherwise it will end up being, like you said, just really a PC mogger's dream, and this will be just a very niche thing. It's also the variety of different products that are available and the difference in experiences that each of them give. When the Oculus was sort of announced, it did feel like a trendsetter, like a frontier, almost a new frontier was being ushered into the industry. But in a very small corner of the industry, though obviously if you're a PC goer, as I know you are, that's not small at all. But it's a case of, okay, do these games work across all the headsets? And if you're having to just pick one, obviously we're not going to be able to afford having more than one or maybe two of these headsets in our homes. The question is, which one are we going to go for? And ultimately you're going to be stuck with that. As I said, like Sony, I completely forgot to mention Microsoft's little delve into the whole VR thing as well.
Well, they're doing AR, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not doing VR, so
No.
Be interesting to see how that kind of fits into the competition. I think they're going their own way. I think they've got Kinect, which is they're still banking on. Obviously, they've got AR. It feels like they're kind of pushing off and maybe taking a gamble on being different.
Yes.
What you say is interesting about kind of compatibility, and that is going to be a big deal. The thing that gives me hope is that operating in the PC space for Oculus without being as open to Steam as possible would be suicide. You know, Steam is almost like, you know, the platform. You know, even EA and Ubisoft have struggled with their platforms in the kind of overwhelming popularity of Valve's. So I would imagine that a lot of things will be, and Oculus have been there already. You know, they've been laying down foundations for months, a couple of years now, with dev kits already out in the hands of developers. So I would be surprised if there might be the odd exclusive game, but I would be surprised. I mean, most third-party stuff I think will work across both.
Yeah.
I mean, what gives me hope that this will work is that Facebook obviously believe in it. They spent $2 billion, and they're not going to just write that off. And Valve obviously are making a whole host of hardware-related announcements as they kind of look to ensure their continued prominence in the PC space. Sony are obviously chucking a wedge at Project Morpheus. So there's a serious amount of money going into this. And I think what we need, and what all of these platforms, these various VR platforms need, is to see through the first 2 or 3 years, because this is what you talked about earlier about it being a frontier, I think is very apt. I think if we can get through the first couple of years and it is still a viable platform, people are still making games, and it doesn't go the way of stereoscopic 3D gaming, and it continues to grow and improve, then we may well be into having VR as a permanent fixture, not just in terms of gaming, but in everything. From virtual meetings in offices to the games that we play.
Yeah.
But it is going to come down to how many people adopt the tech at this early stage. So yeah, it's definitely an exciting time, and you have
to make it viable to just the sort of mainstream consumer to say, look, this is a big upfront spend, but look at the experiences you're getting. You're getting something that you've never tried or had before. I think it's a great sell. Trying it is the sell in itself. I mean, it's a similar sort of thing as I was talking about this to you earlier in the week. It's about that the first time you used a Wii remote, it's the first time you saw lenses 3D on a 3DS. It's something that will make you sit up and be amazed by it. And the other thing I think is worth touching on is the games don't necessarily have to be first-person games. I mean, shooters, we're still trying to work out whether you're not going to end up just chucking everywhere when playing one. Elite seems like a really good example of a VR experience where you're immersed in this whole other world. But one of the key games that I remember playing on Oculus actually last year wasn't even a first-person game. It was a 3D platformer. The name unfortunately escapes me right now, which isn't a great sell for how great it was, but it involved a cape-wearing fox, and you're in a colourful 3D world, something you'd imagine in a Mario game. And with the Oculus on, what you would have to do is you'd have to peer into the world and around to find secret platforms and stuff. And that made what would probably be a fairly average platformer feel like something revolutionary. So if there's this degree and this wide variety of diversity of game experiences that these devices can give, then that will hopefully sell better to a consumer that isn't quite interested in first-person shooters. I know it's a dominant genre at the moment, but I doubt it's going to be forever. And certainly people that are not interested or can't really grasp the sort of like second control stick, people that I know are very happy to stick with 2D games and puzzlers, there's something there for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine its application in a variety of different games. I enjoy strategy games, and if you had kind of like virtual reality headset on controller, because one of the things about the Steam VR is they're talking about kind of developing to go along with it 2 controllers, one for each hand.
Yeah.
Almost like the I think it's the Razer Hydra kind of handheld system. So imagine if you're kind of playing the armchair general like I like to do every now and then, and you're kind of looking out over the battlefield and you could pick up units and move them and stuff. There's exciting applications from racing games, which are obvious, you know, people who love stuff like Euro Truck Simulator, like those people are going to be part of the vanguard. They're going to be the ones who are buying this tech. People who like things like Elite and Eve, and because they're doing Valkyrie, aren't they? These are the people who are going to be who are going to make this a viable platform for the more casual gamers who want to play Mario in through. Well, maybe not Mario because Nintendo certainly aren't talking about VR at the moment. But yeah, they're the people who will make it a viable option for everybody else. So it's important to get those people on board first, definitely.
Yeah, I think another thing to get, whilst the hardcore will probably want to at least test the tech, though Valve have basically said no, it wasn't going to do a Half-Life game. No, it wasn't a new Portal game, as news pieces have come out this week, as they've used these experiences as sort of demonstrations of what the VR tech can do. Imagine if they just turned around and went, right, Half-Life 3 exclusive to VR. I mean, that's not going to happen. I'm just saying that's a way to get people to jump on board for certain. But there is other news stories to talk about, because I am sure that Dorian Bank in the second hour will have a few words to say about VR as well. They've been right on the ground at GDC talking to developers to get a vibe of what the industry thinks about these things. It's one thing about companies announcing this VR tech. It's an entirely different thing to see developers getting on board and seeing what they think about it. I'm sure we'll be getting their thoughts in the second hour.
There's a subplot I'd like to add onto the Steam announcements. The announcements regarding, I think it's the Steam Link,
yes,
and the Steam controller, both of which are coming in November. Both of which priced around $50. So, given the fact that in the UK we massively overpay for all things like that, so imagine it'll be about 45, 50 quid over here. But these are both coming in November. The Steam Link is a very cheap streaming option, so people with a big rig in the office will be able to easily kind of play their more arcadey games on the TV, and with a Steam controller and the Steam Link, perhaps, you know, costing 70, 80 quid between them. Valve's move into the living room seems all the more assured. Put it that way.
Well, they definitely seem more ahead of the game, ahead of the curve than other companies. I mean, we're seeing companies trying to just incorporate, iPhone or sort of Android apps to the big screen with a tie-in controller, which is all well and fine for if you just like your casual games, but it does feel, certainly for me now, I'm more of a console guy than a PC dude, but I can certainly see myself in the near future, if this Link stuff works, doing that, just going wholeheartedly into Steam, and unfortunately doing the thing that all you PC guys seem to do, which is develop a massive back catalogue. Do you realize what you're getting me into? It's just unfair. It's unjust. Damn you, Valve. But that's another argument for another time, really.
Think of all those malnourished game developers that you'll be propping up with your back catalogue of games.
That's right. I paid you money. I can't remember what game it was I bought, but goddamn, I'm supporting you. But other news, because time is rapidly getting away with us. One that I'm quite excited about. We're going to get two news stories here. I'm going to get my one out of the way, and then we're probably going to spend far too long talking about your one. But my one is the Metal Gear Solid 5 release date announcement. Announced a little bit earlier than Konami expected due to various situations, various things dropping online. But September 1st, which I think is a great kickstart to the autumn rush. Certainly, it's a game that, after playing Ground Zeroes, very impressed by the mechanics. I'm an old school Metal Gear Solid fan who fell out of love with the series. Not necessarily the story, but the gameplay from 3 onwards. 3 and 4 just really didn't cut it for me. Ground Zeroes felt like they stripped down the mechanics to make it simple but effective, and what you want to do, you feel like you're doing it. You're not having to sit and plan out, right, what buttons down there you're hitting the controller to do A, B, and C. And applying that to the circular open world is pretty damn impressive, and something that I'm very much looking forward to. But is Metal Gear Solid on your to-play list? Have you any interest in it? Do you think?
I about a week, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I played through Ground Zeroes. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. I'm partial to a bit of stealth, so yeah, no, I thought it was a very nice taste of things to come, and I am looking forward to 5, definitely.
I noticed that in the video with the announcement, Kojima states that it's sort of like this is the last Metal Gear. Now, he said that countless times before. Whether this is, who knows? But my theory, I have a running theory that I've had for a couple of years now since Metal Gear Solid 5 was announced. And it incorporates what he is actually trying to do. That story where he's trying to weave and connect the Big Boss story with the Solid Snake story. Now, if you look at the entire timeline of the series, obviously with Metal Gear Solid 3, we flash back to Big Boss's the start of Big Boss's career, how he became the man he did, where he got his own military outfit, what was it, A Thing Without a Nation, and followed his story. And Solid Snake was put in the background from Metal Gear Solid 2, basically. So my theory is that when he's saying this is the last Metal Gear and he's tying up everything, I think what we'll end up doing is the end of 5, the last mission or the epilogue of 5 will be the first mission, or in fact a reinterpretation of the original Metal Gear, which had Solid Snake storming outer heaven and fighting Big Boss. And I have this idea that I will put good money on that it'll end up, David Hayter will return with Solid Snake. This has been ongoing for ages on social media. He's saying, no, I'm not having to do anything with it. They've got him on. It'll end with basically Big Boss first and Solid Snake, and then it feels like the circle will be complete, to use Star Wars terminology. But it's a storyline that I'm very much looking forward to. And gameplay-wise, as we said, they seem to have really hit the nail on the head this time round. So it's definitely a big, big release.
A batshit story. I have no idea what you just said, but it was beautiful.
It is. I mean, it's got so insane. I mean, it started that way from 2. I think the original Metal Gear Solid is the only one that has a fairly simple storyline. The other one's just...
That's the one that I played back in the day, and then diverged off into a world of PC and Xbox, and then came back to PlayStation. Discovered what was tried to work out what was going on in 4 and 5.
But just no. This is what Wikipedia is for. Just Wikipedia and a large drink in the evening. That's what that's for. But the other announcement, there's a lot of news, but I think one that's very personal to you especially, and me being a fan of the series, is the Halo patch. Master Chief Collection is hopefully finally, touch wood, touch every lucky charm you have, it has been fixed. Now, you wrote a rather lovely, fantastic piece damning the online situation with the game. I know you were very much looking forward to the Master Chief Collection, and unfortunately the rally didn't quite match what you put into it. With this, you tinkered about with the game post-patch. How is it looking now?
It's looking hugely improved. Improved. So with if you don't, you probably, most people will have a vague idea of what's happened, and that's that the Master Chief Collection launched in November and was basically broken from the online side of things. and they kept 343 kept patching every week, every other week, patch. But they, to kind of use an analogy, it felt like more they were taping up the sides of the sinking ship. It wasn't, nothing was working. You know, I mean, it slowly got better. It got better, but it wasn't working as it should. But yeah, 2 weeks ago, I returned for some extended attempts at the game. Now, because I have friends with the game, but nobody's playing it because it's broken. So I had to return and put some time aside, and I logged in at various times throughout the week, and it still wasn't working. Games were just dropping out all the time. There was no evenly matched games. There was lag. The joining up with friends in the lobby was just a complete faff. Basically everything, a series of things that you wouldn't want to happen individually to a game's online multiplayer kind of happened in concert with the Master Chief Collection, and it was a real shame. It's not unprecedented. I think Halo 3 shipped in online side of Halo 3 shipped in quite a sorry state, but they fixed that quite quickly. But obviously, we don't know for sure because 343 are keeping quite stum. But obviously, there was too many things going on, too many different net codes, too many different technical specifications, and getting all that to fit together just proved significantly harder than I think they envisaged. Mm-hmm. But they hadn't patched it for a while, and then earlier this week, a big patch landed, and it has made a noticeable difference. So I spent a good chunk of the day kind of logging in, and Jonas from Gamereactor Sweden joined me, and we had no problems. I think I had one game that dropped out, but apart from that, it was a pretty flawless experience. The teams were full when the match started. I mean, you still... The thing about what's happened to that game and why it's such a shame is any kind of casual audience that they might have had has evaporated. And so people who might have picked it up and they kind of like Halo and they wanted to play a bit, they will have played some of the single player, and then they would have tried the online, it would not have worked, and they won't be coming back.
Yeah. You think there's enough of the Halo hardcore still, though, they were loyal enough that, like yourself, they've been willing, maybe willing's the wrong word, you've just had to put up with it, but there's enough people still there that even at this point, after so many months of the game coming out, that it's still going to have a thriving community? Or do you think people have just went, bugger it, we'll just wait till Halo 5?
There's still a community there, and the people who are playing are, you know, very competent players. More often than not, you know, the games were incredibly tough. So there are some diehard Halo fans, and they're still populating the servers, so that's good news. But in terms of hitting big numbers, I worry that they have missed their chance. My theory is that to get the game being played by the audience it deserves, they're going to have to do something drastic. They're going to have to perhaps release the online side of the game for free for Xbox Gold subscribers or something like that to get enough people through the door that those servers are going to feel busy. But at the same time, perhaps they don't want to do that. Perhaps they're quite happy with a lower number of people populating the servers, and they don't want to risk overloading what may well be quite a fragile server load. So yeah, it's good. It's improving. It's certainly in a much happier place than it was when it first launched. As such, that you could recommend. You know, if you were recommending the game before, you were saying, look, the four player campaign, the four campaigns, there's some co-op in there. That all works really well. It's really good. You know, it's easy to recommend on those terms. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the online side of things, it's only now in March that we're actually able to say, if you want to play Halo online, you can do it on Xbox One now. Before then,
I just love. I can imagine that advert. You can play on Xbox One now.
Yeah. Before that, if you wanted to play Halo 3 or Halo 4, all you could do was log on to your 360. And a lot of people got rid of their 360s. Perhaps they're the ones that are still playing, because they've not got Halo 3 anymore, and they sold their Xbox 360 to an Xbox One because they thought, bang, here's all my Halo games.
One broken mess, yes.
And one broken mess. Well, at least we're getting. I mean, they promised us Halo ODST, which is a nice touch. I wanted Reach myself.
Same, yeah.
I wanted the multiplayer maps from Reach to kind of absorb them, but then obviously, if they can't get 1, 2, 3, and 4 working, then adding Reach in as well might have just been the straw that broke the camel's back. But that was what I wanted, and I still would like. I mean, that was one of my initial kind of gripes with the actual collection. It felt a little bit uneven with the way that they presented the whole thing, and what I wanted was them either to have them all in an individual state, but include Halo Wars and Halo Reach and Halo ODST, and have every single Halo game packaged and brought up to Xbox One, or for them to rework all of the cutscenes and kind of have like a real constant through line through all 4 campaigns. So at the moment you've got one which was the remaster from from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Then you've got 2 which is looking better and with the with the shiny new cutscenes. Then you've got 3 which looked a bit better than it did on the Xbox 360, but still looked like an old gen game. And then 4, which was a handsome game by any stretch on the old gen consoles. It was probably, for me, that and The Last of Us, probably those 2 games pushed that hardware on the last gen the hardest.
Yeah.
But they for me, they could have packaged that up more kind of coherently. But beggars can't be choosers. I'm just glad it works.
Yeah, well, at last, eh? Well, talking about giving players what they want, segue. Resident Evil Revelations 2. See how I did that? The announcement is that co-op is appearing on the PC version, not as a player mod, but as Capcom rule. And now it sounds like they're stress testing it at the moment, so what they have there isn't 100% smooth. They're ironing out the little bugs here and there, but it is there, and that is totally through player feedback. They stated on one of the Steam community pages, one of the Capcom spokesmen said that it is simply, we've listened, and because we've listened, because of what you've said, we are rolling this out. Now, they are, like I said, testing it out. They're asking people to try it out and fire in bugs, any bug reports. And if they're not happy, why are you laughing so much?
They say they listened. I think what they mean to say is, we fucked up.
See, I'm trying to put a nice positive silver lining thing on it. You cut right to the fucking heart of the matter. Yeah, it's a surprise. It's a good one to see. Maybe they tried it initially and they didn't think they would have it in time for launch, so they decided to say, look, it's not coming. And then maybe at some point in the next few months they would have ushered it out and just went, oh, look, big surprise. But as a guy that's playing through the series, the episodic series at the moment, definitely benefits from a 2-player co-op, local co-op sort of vibe to it, because the balancing of each individual pair, anybody that hasn't actually played Revelations 2 campaigns play as 2 pairs of characters, and you can hot swap between each character during the campaign. And the 2 pairs balance each other out. So you've got a weapons specialist, so Barry Burton, Claire Redfield, and they're supported by a more passive character. In Claire's case, it's Barry's daughter Moira, and in Barry's case, it is a young girl by the name of Natalia. And the intention is that those 2 characters, those passive characters, can find items that are hidden around areas as well as use their particular abilities. Now, it works particularly best, I feel. Actually, no, I'm going to scrap that. That's a complete lie. It works brilliantly for both of them, because Natalia's ability is She's able to actually see through walls and spot enemies. Barry has no radar or anything like that, so you're entirely dependent on what Natalia can see to best judge where enemies are. With Moira, she has a torch which she can actually point into enemies' eyes and blind them, and whilst they're blind, Claire can come in, do a melee attack, knock them down, and then they're open to be attacked by Moira with her crowbar. So it's a nice sort of like team-based, a proper team-based sort of co-op experience. That playing it alone works to an extent, though the usual AI problems do factor in. Playing with another player, though, local or whatnot, it's great because you can actually communicate, and that's a big basis for the hook of this particular game. So seeing it appear on PC, however late, and for whatever reason Capcom may have decided to drop it in, I think that's a great headline to see pop up this week, and hopefully it'll show player feedback actually does work, or at least companies are willing to stand up and go, throw their hands up and go, yeah, we fucked up, but we're fixing it. Sorry, Mike, I just realised I've just rattled on there without asking you.
I've not played a game.
I know, there you go, yeah, that's exactly why.
I kind of watched the situation play out with a rueful smile that that they dropped the ball that severely, and they misjudged the reaction that people would get would have when they realised that actually they had missold the product. But I'm glad that they've sorted it out. So, well done.
Talking about how people are going to react. The news that came out this week that Mad Max, the old gen versions, PS3 and Xbox 360 versions, have been canned now. So, Game Informer, the US mag, are carrying Mad Max as their cover story this month, and a general roundup of what was included in that issue revealed that the old gen versions of Mad Max that were originally in development have been canned. We understood prior to this announcement that some online retailers had taken off the pre-orders, and even though Dev Avalanche has said no, still going on, it seems so that the old gen versions have been cancelled. Now, the argument that they're giving is that it allows them to do so much more. They'll be held back by the old gen versions, and certainly that's something we've seen already, heard already from the likes of Arkham Knight. Rocksteady saying it was simply not feasible to do a 360 or PS3 version, and if they did, the entire package would have been crippled, so to speak, due to what they wanted to do versus what they could do with 10-year-old hardware. Now, we're seeing that gradual transition between the old and new gens. Certainly Assassin's Creed last year, Unity came out with new gen consoles, and whilst the old gen did get Rogue, it didn't feel that they were included in the bigger releases now, and I think that's something we're going to see more and more of. Mike, do you think it's it's an accepted thing that this will happen, but you think it's going to take a lot longer for that transition to happen, between that jump between PS3, Xbox 360 and the new gen things, or do you think this will be maybe like the last big Christmas for the older machines?
Well, I think we had a few problems last year, didn't we? I seem to remember Dragon Age Inquisition was proper stinky on the old gen consoles when compared to the new gen, and it seems like that we might have been looking at something similar with Mad Max, with a game that just wasn't up to scratch. We had, you mentioned Assassin's Creed, and they split their development between Unity and Rogue on the different consoles with different dev studios, but the game before that, Black Flag, was out on both consoles. So, and given that Mad Max has been in development for as long as it was in development before they canned it, leads me to think that, I don't know, I could regret these words, but it leads me to worry a little bit about Mad Max. The fact that they're not bringing it out in line with the film, they're bringing it out after the film now. The fact that they've had to cancel the development on the old gen consoles, it just leaves me with a funny.
Worry that development's not going quite as well as we thought.
Well, they obviously. If they're planning on releasing it in the next few months, then they're probably they can't be adding too much more to the game, you know. And if they're saying that they want to cancel, they're cancelling the old gen version so that they can polish up if they're saying they're cancelling the old gen version because it's limiting what they can do with the game.
It seems like a short space of time for them to suddenly turn around and go, well, now we have the ability to do all this, but can we squeeze it into that few short months until the game's released?
I mean, it sounds like what they've done is they've looked at the game, they've looked at what they've got, what they're going to be capable of delivering given the manpower that they've got. Because don't forget, Avalanche are working on Just Cause 3 as well, which is their big game. So they've got multi-studio support working across 2 different big titles. It just feels like perhaps they're cutting their losses a little bit. They're trying to consolidate their workforce on the one game, get it out, and then move on. But I could be wrong. Mad Max could turn out to be absolutely stellar, and I'd like it to because I like the setting. I think it could be an interesting game. But yeah, I'm not so sure it's going to be the classic that it could well have been.
Well, it's odd that, talking about sort of cinematic, or in fact any sort of tie-in, video game tie-in to another property, pre-existing IP, before like 10, 15, well, not even that, maybe 5 years ago, we were looking at that IP and going, it's not going to be good because there's not really enough time to do anything really exotic with it. You're pretty much as simple as possible, just doing a beat-for-beat rendition of a movie with basic combat, etc. Things that we see in a million other games. Yeah, with Mad Max, it's very much like, here's the pedigree of this studio with the Just Cause series. Mad Max, okay, you swap tropical climate for desert-like environments, but still big world. They can do stuff with it, and it seems such a shame that it's maybe not necessarily a problem with the brand itself, with the Mad Max brand. It's just something else, like you said. Maybe it's something a little bit elusive as to why there's a problem with this, and maybe. Well, who knows? There's no point me echoing your words and us both saying something that perhaps we will regret in months to come. Obviously, very interested to take a look at the game. Would like to see the final result. Yeah, movie tie-ins, or cinematic tie-ins anyway. Here we've got Shadow of Mordor winning Game of the Year at GDC, which I think is amazing. This day and age, we're seeing great tie-ins, the likes of Rocksteady's Arkham series, and here is a side story to not even a cinematic trilogy, because this takes place in the timeline just after the events of The Hobbit, but something that I don't think a lot of people had much hope for, other than Lord of the Rings fans getting exactly what they're used to. But here's this game that's introducing an almost revolutionary Nemesis system that completely changes how we interact with NPCs. Have you got Plant Shadow yet?
It's literally, I finished. It's next. It's sitting on my PS3, PS4, waiting to go. It's it's interesting that it's obviously appealed to game developers. I think we interviewed Mike Bithell for the magazine not too long ago for GI Gamereactor UK magazine, and he said that he was obsessed with it. It sounds like that system is very much a game dev's game, developer's game, and I'm really looking forward to playing it. I picked it up. I think I picked it up on Black Friday last year, so it's been sitting on the shelf. We talked about the back catalogue of games. Mine's atrocious, but it's on my list of things to play. I'm very much looking forward to it.
That was the weird thing, because I was interviewing Monolith, I think, at Gamescom last year, and this was after the demo of the Nemesis system, and I was saying to them about, now, this could go anyway, but if this works, you are effectively going to be almost the industry standard now for what people expect from these sandbox-type games and from NPCs, that to generate these sort of relationships with characters through the inclusion of named NPCs and seeing them progress up to War Chief gives you that sense of that tie to them that makes it very personal. So outside the main story, you've got this entire subset of side quests that it's just you trying to down the last bastard that killed you, and they were like, the thing was they're just like, yeah, no. It's like, oh well, fine, okay. Well, if you know it's going to be revolutionary, then that's fine. Hopefully, other people will. But I would love to see this adapted in more games. Certainly, if we have a variety of different genres that do sort of cross-pollinate, and any action adventure today, we expect cover systems, we expect A, B, C, D that we've seen appear in various other games over the years. This is something I would love to see, certainly in the next wave of big action adventure games, because it just gives that extra little element that you will then sink all these extra hours into this world just to, for a personal vendetta.
I think with Mordor, I think it's the IP that has almost been. It's good that they got the IP, because you worry that if they had not had such a prominent IP to work with, this one might have not garnered the attention that it deserved.
No, definitely. I think it's worth also, whilst we have a few news stories to get through and time is pressing, I do think it's worth mentioning the other games that also won awards at GDC, especially just for myself, seeing the Alien Isolation bag Best Audio, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Anybody that has played that with a headset at night will realise it's brown trousers time every single moment of that game. Also, Best Tech Destiny. Now, there's the thing, I obviously disappeared off traveling for a wee while last year, so my Destiny career was left in tatters, but I started again last night on the Xbox One version. I was on PS4 before, picked up Xbox One because a lot of my friends played that version, so it just makes sense for me to hang out with them. And what was great was I was still so astounded by the intro, by the look of the thing, how that world and the service all sort of amalgamate together in this really smooth system. Now, I'm not disputing the issues with the game. Certainly, it does have a few, but from a technical standpoint, from a visual standpoint, I was blown away. And another thing that did stand out, actually, which is off the track somewhat, but it's the soundtrack. That soundtrack is bloody amazing. Absolutely fantastic. I got shivers just listening to the intro theme for it, and yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, are you still touching on Destiny, or is the Halo issues?
I'm still dipping in and out of Halo. It was for me, and this comment will be met with derision in the comments thread, I'm sure. But for me, it was Game of the Year last year. I played a lot of Destiny, so great game. Glad it got some recognition.
Good. I'm glad for that. We should also touch on, again, this would be something maybe we'll touch on with Dorian Bank, but the announcements coming out of GDC for game releases, we're seeing both Elite and Wasteland 2 hit PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Now, Wasteland 2 is something that I couldn't imagine last gen actually coming across from PC to console, but you, Mike, given the PC background, is it something you're happy to see where more and more PC games of more and more variety are coming over to console? And is it something you would actually actively play on console, or would you still just keep it the PC?
Well, I mean, Wasteland 2 is a tricky one. I really enjoyed Wasteland 2. I reviewed it for the site. It's a big game. It's an 80-hour RPG, easy. But I can't. I'm really interested to see how they're going to solve the inventory management on that, because it was with a mouse and keyboard, it wasn't simple, and I look to see how I'm looking forward to seeing how they make sure that works. I mean, we recently ran an interview with Obsidian about Pillars of Eternity, which you can see on the site. And they talked about developing because it's all part of the same ISO RPG Renaissance, and they talked about it's nice developing a game for PC without having to worry about bringing it over to consoles. Wasteland 2 feels like the quintessential PC game. It's strategic, it's wordy, it's intricate, it's complicated. And yeah, I think the key to that game's success is how they map everything onto the control pad.
Yeah.
Elite, on the other hand, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead, because I'm going to jump off into something else. Go on.
But Elite, on the other hand, I can see working very nicely on a gamepad, especially, I mean, with it's going to PS4 and to Xbox One. I think integrated voice controls will be very cool. I really liked Elite when I've played plenty of that since that released at the end of last year, and I think that could very well, especially if they can introduce crossplay between the PC version and the Xbox version, that could be brilliant. So I'm
all for that.
Pardon?
All for that, yeah. Is it a case of, though, it's the game has to fit a console space? It's something that fits quite nicely to a joypad, really?
I've been playing it on a joypad, and the thing about Elite is it takes 6 or 7 hours just to learn how to fly and land your spaceship. You know, before you're like, you wouldn't want to be seen in public trying to park your spaceship at a space station before you've practiced it a couple of dozen times, because it is some of the most painful action that I've ever done in a game ever, was learning how to park that spaceship. It has got that simulator feel to it. You can see why it is so at home on the Xbox, on the PC. But when it comes to Xbox, it will be fully integrated with the Wings expansion, which has just launched or is just about to launch on the PC version. I'm not super up to date on that. I think it's coming very soon, and that brings across much needed co-op support to the game. I think this is going to be a huge game changer for Elite once they've, because at the moment you had to, if you want to play with somebody else, you had to get dropped into the same instance, and then you had to travel across the galaxy and find them. It could have been quite a laborious hit and miss way of getting into co-op, but now they're facilitating that properly, and I think that will have a big impact, and that will certainly work well on console.
Excellent. Sorry, just touching back on what you said about mapping the PC controls from the joypad, and certainly the integration of a user interface that is more console friendly. The news that Sony are going to be emphasizing free-to-play a lot more in future. Certainly this is something we saw when the PlayStation 4 launched over here. There was an abundance of free-to-play titles that almost looked like they were just copied and pasted from their PC counterparts. Certainly there's menu systems. I remember, I think it was War Thunder, actually sticking along and actually seeing like a mouse cursor that you couldn't do anything with, just popped on the title screen.
I think we were trying to play a live stream together and
just
staring at the PC interface. I remember it well.
But this is the issue I have with. I'm all well and fine for maybe it's not necessary just for free to play. I'm just using that as a basis to discuss PC to console ports. I'm fine to see a wide variety of experiences on my console, and a lot of the PC titles that I hear you rave about, I want to try out on PlayStation 4, Xbox One. But then there's something like that where the free to play titles on PlayStation 4, especially where it's really difficult to get into them because there's no tutorial. The button mapping's all over the place. There's just no easing you into that experience. And the concern I have going forward is developers have to think and fit their game to the format that they're releasing on. With saying about playing War Thunder and stuff like that, is that something you can almost interpret by looking at a game, understanding it from a PC background, and just reconfiguring your brain almost to adapt it to a controller? Or would you rather see it completely revolutionized, similar to what you said about Wasteland 2, where the user interface is mapped and customized to benefit with the controller?
I'm going to cop out and say this is very much a case-by-case thing. I think with some games will just work fine on a gamepad. I mean, Elite will work fine on a gamepad because I've played it for 30 hours on a gamepad and it works fine. But other things might not transfer so well onto the console space. War Thunder, I mean, World of Tanks is another. I mean, I played World of Tanks on the 360 version. That's coming to Xbox One shortly. Mm-hmm. And that works fine. The well, War Thunder was, I mean, it was the aerial combat that we played when it first launched on PS4, and that didn't feel as nice as I wanted it to on a gamepad on the DualShock 4. But I think they've integrated tanks since then, so if you're playing on the ground, that might be better. It's interesting that Sony are pushing more into free to play. When it looked as if that payment model, I mean, in other places that payment model is starting to kind of wobble a little bit. But if they can, it's certainly an attractive price point, and if they can get it right, some games do it right, some games do it wrong. If they can get it right, then they stand to make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's fitting the model. I'm working out the game's model will fit in and allow it to thrive and survive. Just thinking with the news that the confirmation should say that there is a new Rock Band coming. I find it interesting in the specific wording of that announcement, saying they're almost looking at Rock Band 4 as a platform to which music tracks and stuff like that will come to. So I'm imagining something like the karaoke singing star on PlayStation, where you'll do it almost as a download, and that's how you access your music. But from now on in, you basically build a library by buying individual tracks or album playlists, basically, and you'll have the one setup of guitar and drums and microphone, and that will do us for the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. And any changes they make to Rock Band from now on in will be offered via just a DLC update further down the line. So initial one-off payment, and then which will hopefully be relatively small. I can't imagine them selling a new Rock Band or Rock Band anymore for anything more than like maybe 20, 30 quid at the most. But the question then is, are you willing enough to get all these plastic guitars back into your home?
That's the question. Has that genre had its day? We'll find out. I dare say enough people will buy it that it will exist in some capacity. I think its world-conquering days perhaps might be done though.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it's more like a sideline, like a party thing on a Friday night before you go out. That's certainly how I use Guitar Hero and Rock Band before anyway, so it's not a huge difference to me. But I feel that they do need to do something with the gameplay. Again, based on the first couple of interviews Holmes have done about bringing it back into the fold, is that the way they looked at the original was it was 4 people in a room playing 4 different single-player experiences. They just happened to be in close proximity to each other, so that they need the instruments, they need the musicians to almost bounce off each other. Now, they talked about that in a very abstract way. If anybody that's been to a gig will always see musicians do thrive off the energy of each other. Certainly, anybody will know the sort of like the battles you'll see between drummers and bassists, really, and lead guitarists and singers. But how that translates to gameplay mechanic, I'm not too sure. I mean, this sounds something like Transcendental rather than everyone hit X together, everyone do star power together by hitting their instruments at the same time. Glad to see it back, but like I said, it's going to be a very different beast than what it was before. It's not going to be a huge revolutionary thing. I don't think people will be happy about buying plastic peripherals. I know certainly retail stores will hate to see that stuff coming back in, but who knows? I'm glad to see it back though. But let me see. Time-wise, we've got about 5 more minutes left this first hour. So just sort of talking as we wrap up, the announcement that both Epic are releasing their Unreal Engine 4 for free for devs, and hopefully at some point in the near future, Source 2 will be available as well. I loved how it was tapping into the idea that they've seen such a boom of indie development over the last few years, and the quality of the content as well that people are producing and showing off that has basically moved Valve to do this, to basically say, look, the tech's there, the talent's out there, let's get the two together as easily as possible. So they've stopped doing the subscription-based thing and just let it, they've moved it to a free-for-all. I like the idea, I support the idea. Certainly, I mean, I think you have to be quite mean not to, but I think the benefit of it will be we will see a lot more. Yeah, sorry, I'll try that again. We'll see a vast array of different type of game experiences. No longer with a gun in your hand, you'll be seeing adventure games. It just opens up the field, and I think it's a lovely thing to couple with the VR stuff as well, to sort of bring it into that. The VR stuff you're not going to see. You're going to see the odd traditional game here and there, but I think it opens itself up more to more variety of experiences, which I think the industry is ready and waiting for.
I think in many ways the decision for both Source and for Unreal to be made free, I think Unity has a lot to do with that. You know, because that has been free for a long time. At the kind of the point of contact. I mean, I think if you make a certain amount of money out of a game, then you have to kick some upstairs. But to actually use the tools is free. So having that has changed the game. I think there's a couple of caveats. I think there's my front doorbell. That's good. I think Steam. You have to use the Source engine in conjunction with Steam. I think that was, I might be talking guff, but I think there has to be that might be the caveat there, and again, it's going to be something similar with so the doorbell has completely thrown me. It's going to be something similar with Unreal. So it's great news across the board that there is now a wealth of options, for people interested in making all types of games. There's RPG Maker, there's Game Maker Studio, there's Unity, there's Unreal, there's Source. People can make stuff now, and it's becoming even more accessible. Now, I mean, I would love to make a game, but I feel like I'm perhaps too much of a dinosaur. I don't have the skills. I like the fact that there's a big emphasis on education now, on teaching people to be writers, not just readers, I think is the way it's been described. I think these are all positive things, and it's not gonna be long before we're looked at. Our generation are looked at as the people who are so behind the times, who don't know how to code. And I think that's an incredibly positive thing, because it means we're going to have millions of games to play, and it's going to be a lot easier for talented developers from all walks of life, not just kind of the old guard developers, the traditional idea of a game developer, but different voices from across society, being able to kind of learn the basics of programming and to, like you say, steer us away from just a plethora of different first-person shooters and usher in experiences that speak to all sorts of gamers from across the world. I think that is potentially huge, and can't be kind of understated how important it is now that that not only can these tools available, but they're available to everybody. That's great.
Cool. I think that's a great way of ending the show. There's more headlines to talk about, but we're out of time. We're going to wrap up now. Mike, thanks very much for joining me for this first hour. We're going to disappear for a few minutes whilst we chime in Bengt and Dory, who are fresh-faced and alive, apparently, in America, and they will be talking to me about their GDC experiences. So, in a few minutes, we'll see you again.